Okay, yes, I'm on. Yeah, that's cool. So very briefly, actually, guys, if you want to come up,
Yep.
and while they're coming up, I'll just very briefly introduce myself and then the important people on the panel. My name is Ben Rooney, and I aspire to working for TechCrunch, but actually I'm the technology editor for the Wall Street Journal Europe. And as you can see, we take a very generous view of what Europe is these days, the sort of Eurovision Song Contest view. Turkey is a fascinating, from a European point of view, Turkey is a fascinating economy. As I'm sure you all are all aware, the European economy, if we take the European Union economy, if we can use the word grew, European economy grew at about, roughly speaking, a little bit less than 1%. And I think the Turkish economy last year grew at about 7 or 8%, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was about 8% growth. So it's a phenomenal powerhouse in terms of what's going on there. That's enough about me. The people you're really here to hear about, very briefly, just introduce yourselves, explain, who you are and why you're here.
Okay, perfect. My name is Arda Kutsal. I'm founder of Webrazi. Webrazi is the leading Turkish tech blog. It's not good to say that, but it's like we start to mention TechCrunch, so I'm going to mention them as well. Webrazi is like TechCrunch of Turkey. We organize leading tech events in Turkey and also cover all startups, e-commerce companies, and really analyze the whole market locally and regionally.
Excellent.
My name is Evren. Does it work?
Can we have that?
My name is Evren Uçok. I'm a VC investor focused on the technology sectors.
Hang on, I don't think your sound's on yet.
Let's check.
Exactly. You.
My name is the same problem.
Yeah, just lift it up a little bit.
Yeah, so I'll keep talking if you like. Yeah, Webrazi is so good. It's so good. You cannot imagine how big is this. This is Nevzat Aydın.
Yes.
Okay, I'm the CEO and co-founder of yemeksepeti.com, which is an online food delivery company established in Turkey, started operations in Turkey in year 2001 January. And last year we launched our operation also in United Arab Emirates, in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and in Sharjah. And we are also in Russia, in Moscow, and in St. Petersburg. And the number of users we have is more than 1.2 million, with 45,000 individual transactions per day.
And of course, you famously had some good news recently, didn't you?
Sorry?
Are you okay there? Yeah. Just tell the audience about the exit that you had, or the partial exit, I should say.
It's kind of a secondary thing. It's not a primary investment, but we got invested by a European Founders Fund, the Somewhere Brothers, in 2008, and we sold 20% of our shares to them. That's it.
Excellent. Are we back on?
Thank you. Firstly, test.
Yes.
Seems to work. So I apologize for earlier. By way of introduction, I'm a venture capital investor with Early Birds, which is one of the leading venture capital firms in Europe. And my focus, together with my partners, is this region, Turkey, Middle East, and Eastern Europe. Previous to that, I was a co-founder, I still am, and a seed investor of Trendyol, which is a successful e-commerce company in Turkey, and also of Peak Games, which I'm sure some of you know. And previous to that, I was actually a management consultant covering this region for Oliver Wyman, advising many of the banks here. So while I'm Turkish, actually, I'm also know the region quite well, especially the Middle East.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much. I think if we're going to get the most out of this panel, then the important thing for the audience here is what are the lessons that they can take away, what are the lessons that they can learn from Turkey. It's very interesting when you look at the size of there were some good figures in fact in the pamphlet on the size of the comparative size of the two markets. Turkey's market, is 3 times, the e-commerce market is 3 times the entire of this region. The obvious question is, how come? why is it that the economy is that the e-commerce economy is 3 times that size? Who wants to jump in on that one? Why? Why is the Turkish e-commerce economy doing so well?
If you like, I can give some quick numbers, and then maybe you guys want
Yeah,
to
jump in.
go into experiences, because you have more experience than me. I've never done e-commerce in my whole life.
Sounds good.
Only sold tickets to our events. Turkish e-commerce market is, in 2011, it was over $12 billion.
12 billion.
Yeah, and comparing to 2010, it's like around 50% growth.
Wow.
So in 2010, it was $8.5 billion. And yeah, it's a huge growth. And obviously in 2009, there was an economic crisis worldwide. Even at that time, Turkish e-commerce market grew like 13%. So the reason of this growth is probably, this is my guess, market is so young. Nearly 70% of the whole online population, online audience, is under 34 years old.
Right.
And these people, most of them, born in an internet time. So they got used to using internet, they got used to all these e-commerce sites and everything. So after a while, they start to have their credit cards, usually after 18 years old.
Right.
So internet was growing, there was a good penetration, and also population was young, and then they start to use it. So there's one point I really want to underline about Turkish market is everything happens so quickly in Turkish market. For example, people usually doesn't need time to start using something. For example, Facebook. Facebook was on market in the market in the world, so there was no users from Turkey.
Right.
But in 1 year, we got to like 1 million users there, and now we are like 4th or 5th biggest population on Facebook.
Yeah.
So we used to go to an offline market, buy our stuff. The day after, we start to shop online.
Okay, so just going to tease out 2 things, and then So one of those you're saying was the credit card penetration.
Yeah.
Now I know that actually by European standards, Turkey has very high credit card penetration, and we were just hearing about some of the problems in Saudi Arabia there. So credit card penetration was certainly a key enabler, and then you said the age of the population.
Yeah.
So Turkish population, again, unlike the rest of Europe, is actually a very young population. Now,
A number may be interesting at this point. There are 51.4 million credit cards in Turkey and 81.9 million debit cards.
81.9, and the
Yeah,
population
these are debit cards.
and the population of Turkey is about 80 million.
Yeah,
So it's over 100% penetration.
So you can add them together and divide them into population, so you will know how many cards every person has.
Wow, okay, so very high. Yeah.
When you go to the bottom of that, I mean, when you look at the population and that number of credit cards or mobile phones penetration, you see that the culture of Turkish people, we are afraid to miss innovation. We are afraid to miss new things. I can say that Turkish people are more natural adapters, because in your social life, if you miss some kind of innovation, you feel you are left behind.
Oh, okay.
It's different in Europe. I mean, according to my observations, I mean, when something new shows up from somewhere else, they are more reluctant to change. Turkish people are just the opposite. Maybe it's because of they are very young, and they really love trying new things. So it's a perfect market for these new e-commerce models all around the world. And now that you have the cloning down to like a couple of months before, when you had your business model, then your competition was coming in a couple of years. I mean, I experienced this. I mean, we started in the year 2001 in January. Our main problem was not the competition, but the bandwidth. I remember optimizing our graphics files till morning because the connection was so slow that it was taking ages for the users to download the website. It changed the first inflection point, I think. It came in 2005, 2006 with the privatization of Turkish Telecom. And before then, the individuals, they only had internet access at offices. They didn't have personal PCs, laptops, or broadband connection at home.
Right.
But now then they understood that it's something very beneficial for their life, and they thought I should use this at home also, and they started buying PCs. They were on the net, but they weren't spending anything on the net.
Okay,
they were
this is
just
2005.
browsing emails,
Yep.
messages, surfing for porn, I don't know. But it wasn't e-commerce. The second inflection point came in the year 2010, 2011, when with all these models, like group buying is one of them, private sales in another, private shopping is another model. We are also, because you don't need to use your credit card online in our model, it's important. And online banking, I think these are the 4 very important models that the users switched from just browsers to buyers in the internet. And that grew enormously.
So online banking, so again, we come back to and the development of the infrastructure. Now, I certainly know that when I was in Istanbul at the end of the summer, I was absolutely struck by the speed of the mobile internet in Istanbul. I mean, I would think at least by a factor of 5, if not more times faster than the internet, the mobile internet in London, which is appallingly bad. I mean, it was very impressive. So again, so we've got this whole idea about the infrastructure. So one thing I then want to move on to is the sort of, you know, what was the thing that kind of spurred this take up to happen? Because as you say, in about 2010, 2011, suddenly we saw it. So from a VC's point of view, you know, was there a big change? Was there people looking at existing business models that were working elsewhere and then bringing them into Turkey and adapting them for the Turkish audience?
I think it wasn't just one thing, but as Nevzat said, it was a coalescence of many things. So one of them was the infrastructure story.
Yeah.
Another was that you know, Turkey always had a huge macro potential, and in the last 5 years, suddenly that gained critical mass. You know, we used to be a $200 billion economy, now we're $700 billion, 80 million people, etc., etc. And like when these factors are up together, suddenly you get on the radar of all the investors, not just VC, but you know, hedge funds and strategic investors and so on. So Turkey suddenly kind of went from another emerging market to, okay, well, actually this is kind of top 10 emerging market. I mean, you know, Goldman Sachs' story about the growth markets and so on. So there's a bit of that. I think there's a bit of the realization that actually Turkey is quite unique in that if you look at some of the other larger emerging markets, there's big issues around corruption and governance, and I think with some of those horror stories, suddenly also investors realize that Turkey on balance is a great destination, yet you know, it's not the States or Switzerland in terms of rule of law and everything else, but when you compare it to some of the other famous emerging markets, it really clearly stands out in comparison to them vis-a-vis infrastructure, rule of law, and other factors. I think a third factor was just the number of success stories that inspired people.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Like Nevzat's company, Yemek Sepeti, and you know, some of the many other success stories in the last 2-3 years. And simultaneous to all of that, that has then also brought a reverse brain drain from the States and Europe. Because if you look at some of the most successful startups in the last 5 years, a lot of them are people who have had significant internet and technology experience in these continents, because it's very easy to start up a company, but it's very difficult to build up a very big, successful startup if you don't have the right experience. So all of that came together, and I think that's really the result.
Arda, you mentioned there about some successful exits. How important is it to the development of the ecosystem right the way across, right the way from the investors to the people who are thinking about being entrepreneurs, you know, to the companies that are already up and running? How important is it that they have, you know, that there are these successful exits that they can point to, and the people that provide role models? How inspirational has that been?
First of all, success stories are so important for the markets. It's important for entrepreneurs, plus this is important for investors,
Yeah.
especially foreign investors. Because I remember the first corporate VC entered in the Turkish market was Intel Capital. And they invested in Nokta. It's a Turkish company which owns leading video sites, like video blogging platform and stuff. So after Intel Capital invested in Turkish markets, I was saying that, okay, this is the start.
Right.
Because,
When was that? What year? Roughly.
Like 1.5, 2 years ago. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. I can check it while you're talking. So I think it was 1.5 years ago or something.
Okay.
And so after that, we start to hear more VCs interested with the Turkish market. I start to receive phone calls, emails from some corporate VCs, like, let's say, Sequoia Capital, Excel Partners, most of them. So then we heard that Kleiner Perkins invested in Trendyol, and Excel has an interest in some companies and stuff. So this is so important. Like, success stories are important. Then eBay acquired Gitti Gidiyor. Gitti Gidiyor was Turkish eBay. So eBay acquired 93% of the company for like $217.5 million, which is huge.
It's going to say real money then.
It was one of the biggest, actually, one of the biggest, not one, this was biggest, not one of, this was the biggest exit in Turkish market.
275 million.
Yeah, 217.5.
217, right,
So
okay.
it was so big. It obviously pushed some entrepreneurs to enter into this market as well. Then, yeah, we had some good success stories like Marco Foni, Trendyol, and Yemek Sepeti is always a good example for the entrepreneurs. So this is important. Markets needs good success stories, and obviously need some platforms to able to spread this word. So even if you have success stories, who is spreading the word?
Yeah.
That's important. So ArabNet is a good platform. I know a couple of websites for entrepreneurs and like communities. They really need to be powered and supported.
So we need, so I mean, your own role in this, WebRats' role, you know, as the sort of, you know, the tech, unfortunately, if you're the tech crunch of Turkey, that makes you Mike Arrington. But never mind. But that role that
I don't have my own fund.
You don't exactly. So that becomes very important. Yeah, sorry.
I think one of the game-changing events related to internet in Turkey started when the individuals with innovative individuals, excellent skills, very good education, they understood that if they do things right, they can start earning money from internet. Before, when you graduate, because unemployment rate is high in Turkey,
Yep.
and when you graduate from a good university with a good degree, then there are two options for you. One, you go and work for a multinational company. You start from somewhere. After a certain amount of time, you get promoted. You have a nice life, but it's all very well defined. And the second is you become an entrepreneur. But since you don't have enough resources to get funding, it was like this 10 years ago. It was even like this a couple of years ago. Now we see more VCs, more angel investments, more private equities. It's still not enough, but it's relatively new. So before, then the second option would be try to go out to market with your own money. You don't know when you will get your, when and where you will get your first salary, and it's a very risky bet. And after a couple of years' time, if you don't succeed, which is very normal, because like only 10% of them succeed.
Only 10%.
And then you lose a couple of years with your graduates, and then you have that social cost with the people and the family and friends. They look at you as you failed. So it's very difficult for that individual to choose that entrepreneur path. But now we have the money, we have finances more, and we have role models. We like me and other people, they showed these people, these newly graduates, that they can earn money from internet if they succeed. I think this is very important in Turkish internet life. We see more and more very bright minds with very good education coming back to Turkey from US or from Europe.
So, as you said, the reverse brain drain, people coming back. I want to pick up on something that you said, and which is this idea of failure. Now, you know, I did a big tour of European countries and looking at entrepreneurship in those various countries, and it really struck me that particularly in Western Europe, and I would say actually attitudes to failure in Turkey were considerably better than attitudes to failure in Western Europe. In Western Europe, if you fail, that's it. I interviewed one chap who was doing a startup who he failed very, very badly indeed. I mean, there are things you do not want to appear on your CV, and he was caught in Atlanta, Georgia, with 6,000 ecstasy tablets in his luggage. And cut a very long story short, you know, he went to jail, he came out, he applied to the bank for a bank loan. He wanted to borrow £5,000, so not, you know, $1 million. Because he wanted to buy a chair, a desk, and a computer. By the way, I should say he now runs, it's about a 20 million startup that he now runs. He borrowed £5,000 and they were all ready to lend it until they said to him, you know, do you have a criminal record? And it was like, everything was going really well. And at that point, the bank manager just literally, he said he just put his pen down and just went, well, I think that's it then, isn't it? And so attitudes to failure are very key. I want to pick up on this. Every VC that you talk to will always say, oh, of course, we don't mind failure, you know, we look at it. Realistically, how big an obstacle is it in the Turkish market if you're looking at entrepreneurs who have tried and failed? What is the attitude towards that?
It's a difficult question. I mean, if you have time, let me start by doing a comparison between America and Europe. If you look at total VC returns, Europe is actually ahead of America. If you look at kind of IRRs and so on that VCs do in Europe, it's better than in America. Yet if you look at absolute returns, interestingly, as we all know, all the big companies come out of America.
Yeah.
You know, the 10 billion, kind of $50 billion plus. Europe has had 2-3 huge success stories, you know, in the 10 billion plus range. And I think that has a lot to do with this particular issue, you know, lack of entrepreneurship in Europe, and they like to go, you know, the full distance and so on. And so I think in comparison to Europe, Turks are actually quite entrepreneurial. You know,
yeah,
they are risk takers. I mean, there are some factors that Nevzat mentioned which are true. So kind of the most academic, the brightest young graduates may be quite risk averse. You know, they might still prefer banks and those types of other jobs. Yeah. But as a whole, Turks are actually very, very entrepreneurial. Probably the second most entrepreneurial people after Nigerians.
I would agree, yeah. I think they're very entrepreneurial.
The problem I see in Turkey a little bit is that, you know, you see all these companies starting up, especially now on the back of all these success stories. There's this huge drive to entrepreneurship. You literally see dozens of companies started every month. But you know, the trick is not to start a company, but to actually get to the finish line, whether that's a strategic exit or, you know, a big VC investment. And this is where I think Turkey still has a way to go.
Has some way to go.
And I mean, if I had a lesson for Turkish entrepreneurs, that would be the main lesson. Now, coming to the Middle East, I think it's equally relevant, probably, because it's probably too early to tell, because a lot of those factors we talked about that happened in Turkey 5 years ago and are now happening here in the Middle East.
I agree, yeah.
So I think over the next 10 years, you're going to see a similar story here that you saw in Turkey in the last 10 years. But I think the important thing is, are people drawing the right lessons? You know, are the lessons they're drawing that in order to be successful, you actually do need those 5-6 things to come together: the funding, good entrepreneurship, what we call you know, sustenance and longevity and those things, or are they drawing lessons that you just start up a company? And I think that's going to be a big differentiator between those that succeed and those that fail.
I'm going to come to the audience soon. So if you've got questions, if you want to learn, if you've got questions about what their experiences were, what are the takeaways that we can go, that would be fantastic. This is a great opportunity. Turkey, as I say, has been incredibly successful. It's been very successful, in its own right. If you compare it with this region, it's, of course, is doing phenomenally well, and it's doing very well, in comparison with, in terms of growth, certainly, in the rest of the European Union. So do have some questions. I have one more question to ask the panel, and then I'm going to be coming to you. There's no escaping it, and we, you mentioned the Samba brothers. The people, and I mentioned in the last panel I was doing, and people get very, what's the word I can use? They get, there's a lot of division over clones, over companies that are, taking an existing business model and then applying it in a local market. We saw, how incredibly successful Market VIP has been, which is obviously a vente privée, model, and it's been built on that. From a development of the ecosystem point of view, in other words, using these companies to build the system, how important is it? How, are they a problem? Is that a path that you would actually recommend people to do, to go down that, take a model, or should they be striving to do something completely innovative, completely new, and build, the new Facebook? Who wants to grab that one?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I can say quickly, clones are not bad. Actually, in emerging markets, clones are good to accelerate the market. So this
build the market.
Yeah, so this is what I believe. If you check some, like for example, German markets, you will see that after Zomware, after all those clones, after there was like a anger to these people, Berlin became one of the startup hubs. Absolutely. And now
good point.
There are some good innovative startups. So cloning is not a bad thing,
No,
I believe, for emerging markets. And if you are building a market, yeah, it's a good start. So, yeah.
I agree with Arda. I think also starting from the Market VIP example, yes, it's a clone, but it actually fulfills an original need, which is before them, there was no private shopping site in the region. I mean, there was Scar, so the two of them are the innovators. So I think that's actually great because you're solving a real customer need, whether it's a clone or not. I think the problem is when you already have 10 companies in some sectors and then there's a clone number 56.
Yeah.
I see these entrepreneurs, I feel very sad for them.
Yeah, no one wants to be the fourth biggest group on clone in Istanbul. That's of no interest to anyone.
Definitely, but yet, I mean, you still see a lot of these business plans of companies that are trying to be number 15 in a given sector, or maybe it's a different business, but it's trying to address the same consumer needs, whether it's shopping or social networking, and I think that's very important for entrepreneurs that, it doesn't matter whether you're a clone or not, but you don't want to be player number 15 serving a particular need, that's already served. You want to identify a real, actual problem and solve it, because in the end, it's really the consumer. Yeah,
if you're going to be a clone, be the biggest. Be the biggest clone. Be the most successful. Yeah.
And let's be honest, there is no way to stop it. Also, and I think we are living in an era that idea is not king, but execution is king.
Absolutely.
It used to be different 10 years ago. The ideas, they were not everywhere. So maybe you were feeling not that good about sharing your idea with your friends. You might have like a doubt that they would steal your idea. It's not like this anymore. I mean, I can give, if I find the right entrepreneurs, I can give them 20 ideas.
Absolutely.
But it all comes down to execution. And there are a lot of innovation also stems in the execution as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you look at, if you actually take the vente privée model and then you compare, Market VIP and how they've executed. If you look at Kupi VIP in Moscow, completely different way they've done it. So it's all about execution.
And in what we do, for example, we are like one of the pioneers in the world in these terms.
Yeah.
I don't say we are the biggest, we are the most successful, but like one of the pioneers. And it's all different everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, this is your opportunity. Turkey, great success story. Do we have some questions? Anyone has some? There's a gentleman down here. If we can get a microphone. So this gentleman here. Any other questions? Then we'll just queue them up afterwards. Yeah, down here. Okay, so no, it was the gentleman back there. Yeah, you just keep your hand up as the microphone comes towards you. And then after that one will be the gentleman in the front down here.
Hi, morning. My name is Tariq, and I have one question from an e-commerce point of view in Turkey. You mentioned about a very high penetration of credit cards and debit cards. I mean, from a payment point of view, where do you see most of the payments coming in from in that market? And is net banking something that is big out there when it comes to e-commerce?
Who wants to pick up that one? Payments.
I can easily say that the banking works almost perfect in Turkey. So it's you have a very highly established and very well bank networking, and the POS it's everywhere. The virtual POS is getting everywhere too. So and this year and also the next year it will be the fight between different payment methods in Turkey. It's going to be very popular. But I think two things: the payment and logistics, very important. And I think Turkey has achieved a lot in the last 2-3 years. And the Arab countries also should have done the same. I had some one-to-one talks with the .com companies here. There are a lot of problems with logistics and payments. The cash on delivery, I don't think, 80% cash on delivery in orders, it's a lot, and it shouldn't be like this. I think it will change in the near future.
Well, I mean, Russia, obviously, it's all cash on delivery in Russia. So they have to, and they have lousy logistics. They have to build their own. There was a gentleman in front, and then a gentleman there. So this gentleman here, and then the gentleman behind.
Hello. My name is Aboud from Souk.com. Turkey is one big country. How do you suggest we approach our market, which is very fragmented, very different payment methods, logistics issues, and borders? So if I want to quote Ahmed Al-Khatib from you guys, either go big or go home. Going big in we have countries with less than 1 million population. So how do you suggest we really go big in this region?
Very good question. Who's going to pick that one up? Yeah.
That's a great question. First let's start with some statistics. I'm sorry, I always bore. Turkey has a GDP of $700 billion right now. The Arab world has a GDP of 2 trillion. Turkey has a population of 80 million. The Arab world, so just Arabic-speaking countries, I'm not counting other Middle Eastern countries, just Arabic-speaking Middle East countries have a population of about 320 million people, which is dispersed across more than 20 states, as you mentioned. But the gist is it's very, very big. And the good news is it's also getting much, much bigger because population growth is still very fast in many Arabic-speaking countries. So in population and GDP will be significantly bigger in 10, 15 years. So we're talking about a very, very big market actually. Yes, it's difficult to penetrate it because you have to deal with all these different countries and payment systems. But in a lot of these things, the question comes down to, is the effort worth the price? And I think it definitely is, given that you're talking about probably the 4th biggest monolingual region in the world, with 300 million plus people. You're talking about probably the only one of those that actually is still showing a very high population and economic growth. So that's my short answer. I will not give a long answer because I think a lot of the technicality behind payments and logistics, and as you pointed out, there is no quick answer.
I'd just say one thing on that, just myself come on that, which is have a look at Estonia. Estonia, tiny little Baltic state right up the north there, 1.3 million, population of 1.3 million people. No one in the rest of the world speaks Estonian, and yet punches hugely above its weight. 3 of the top 10 finalists in the last seed camp were from Estonia. It's a really interesting case study, and you'd be well advised to have a look at that. Sorry, yeah.
And you also have a lot of advantages as well. I'm sure you have a lot of things in common with all these GCC, Saudi Arabia, Syria. You have the same language. Just think about Turkey. We have Greece, we have Russia. We don't even share the same alphabet. We have Syria, we have Iran, Iraq, Bulgaria. So if you are, yes, the country is huge. It's with 70 million population. But if you want to penetrate into your neighbor countries, you don't have any chance with your same business model.
Yeah.
And also like logistics, you have Aramex everywhere, as far as I know. You have some banks everywhere in the region. I think you guys have a huge advantage over Turkey, but I don't mean, of course, how big is it in Turkey.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent. Yeah, the gentleman there.
Thanks. I want to take us back to the beginning of the rise of entrepreneurship in Turkey. So you talked about some of the big exits that got a lot of entrepreneurs excited. They got into the field. Now, these big exits, how did they happen? You know, like, give me one example, maybe from the very beginning. For example, Market VIP said, I wanted to look for VCs, and I needed money, and I couldn't find it. I went to Belgium to find it. Did the same happen in Turkey, or was there maybe somebody at the beginning who was a very good VC, or maybe a bank loan, or a program, incubator like Oasis that kick-started this process?
Okay.
Who was patient zero?
Yeah, I can start it like first of all, I checked the year of Intel Capital Nokta investments. It was a year ago. It wasn't 1.5 or 2 years. It was 1 year ago. March 2011 it was. So I'm gonna go back to the beginning now. I remember it was either 2006 or 2007. I'm not really sure, but Blogcu.com, which was Blogger.com's clone. You know Blogger.com, Blogspot. Blogcu was a Turkish clone of Blogger, and it was acquired by Nokta, this company which Intel invested.
You mentioned, yeah.
And they never disclosed the amounts of acquisition, but it was around $1 million. So it was sorry, there's another one before that. There was a video site called izisene.com, and izisene.com was YouTube clone.
YouTube, right?
And in 6 months, it was in 2006, yeah. And in 6 months, it was acquired again by Nokta. And they didn't share the amount again, and it was $500,000 or something. So afterwards, we had this Blogcu.com acquisition, which was a little bit more than $1 million. And then we heard a big acquisition, which was Çember.net. Çember means circle in Turkish. And it was acquired by Zing. Zing is German clone of LinkedIn. So the amount was 4.36 million euros.
Okay, so these are all quite small.
These are still so small. I can check the dates and years if you like, but these were the first times. And how it happened was European Founders Fund, which is also an investor in Yemek Sepeti, they invested in Çember, and then after a while they sold the whole company to Zing. So, and then we start to hear more bigger acquisitions, like we heard more investments, like Trendyol has over $50 million something investment in total. Like Peak Games, another really good example, they found the company in 2010, and in 1 year they had $20 million investments from some European VCs, by the way. So how it started, regarding to your question, just one investor from Europe came to Turkey, invested in a couple of companies, and that was a story, that was a case study for the others. European Founders Fund. And before that, Nokta made some acquisitions, a local company made some acquisitions. Also, Doğan Corporation, which is owner of most of the media in Turkey, they made some acquisitions, and yeah, that was a start. And afterwards, that was the tipping point, I guess.
So maybe you've had yours. Maybe Market VIP is the, you know, we heard, I mean, phenomenal figures, 100 million, you know, on course for 100 million sales this year. Maybe you've had that one. This is the last question. Gentleman standing over in the corner, and then, sorry, I ran out of time. This gentleman here, and then that's it.
We've been talking about the opportunities of the Arab world. Do entrepreneurs in Turkey or VCs also, do they consider the Arab world as an expansion market, as a priority for them? Do you push them to consider it? On the flip side, do you recommend Arab entrepreneurs to consider Turkey as a priority market for expansion? or Europe or elsewhere?
Yeah, so we are a media partner at ArabNet this time. Like Webrazi
you're
is one of
media
the media
partner.
partners, so I'm planning to expand, obviously.
You've expanded into
Yeah,
the
yeah,
region.
it's definitely a priority for us. I mean, we have conducted a lot of market research everywhere in the world, and we started Dubai and Russia at the same time. Honestly, Dubai is performing much better than Russia, and I think in 6 months we will be opening up in 3 other Arab countries our model. So I think there is huge potential over here, and we will continue investing in this region. The opposite, I don't want to be harsh about it, but I think it's a little bit difficult, especially to succeed in Europe. It's not only for Arabic entrepreneurs, Arab entrepreneurs, but also it's as a Turkish entrepreneur as well. Yes, we will see a lot of more and more entrepreneurs becoming successful, coming from emerging markets in the world globally. But with the amount of finances entrepreneurs in Europe or US gets, it will be a difficult match for us.
I saw, there was one, and then we must end, unfortunately. I saw one really interesting, when we met in that conference in Antalya, that really interesting Turkish e-commerce site that actually I think probably does stand quite a good chance of expanding right across Europe. And it was targeted, it was, do you know, it was that one about aimed at conservative women. So it was aimed at Muslim women who do not want to dress in the traditional, you know, the traditional garb, but still wanted to wear conservative clothing. And that seemed to me a fantastic opportunity. I thought that was you know, it's not often you see e-commerce sites that you think, wow, completely new ground.
Yeah, it's very cultural. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was a really interesting example.
And another example is, I mean, one of our important investments at Early Bird is Peak Games.
Peak Games, of course,
and, you know, I joined Peak Games as a co-founder, angel investor. Then I joined Early Bird because that's how I met them. And you know, we made a decision early on that Middle East presented a huge opportunity for us, and now it's actually almost as big for us as Turkey. We are the, I think, the leading gaming house in the Middle East by far. And you know, so for Turkish companies that reach a certain level of maturity, there is an opportunity to come here and you know, establish themselves. I think for Arabic companies established here, there is also an opportunity. But first, you should build your domestic market. You should get to a critical mass before doing a risky expansion, because expanding from one cultural geography to another is always a bit risky in terms of capital know-how. So I would recommend it to those Arabic companies that have already established a strong foothold here and you know, have know-how they can export. But I wouldn't recommend it to completely new entrepreneurs. I think if you're a very new company here, there is already so much room to grow in the region that if you're looking for other language regions, it's probably a beautiful stretch for you.
Excellent. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, as was always on these things. You know, speaking as someone who's quite new to the seeing that, you know, the market here in Middle East and actually finding it very exciting, it seems to me that there is this sort of progression. You know, Turkey does provide a really good example, and there are a lot of lessons to be learned on that. And I would commend you just to study and see what Turkey has done and what has worked. When I interviewed Rashid Al-Balagh yesterday, and he was talking, you know, and I asked him this question about obstacles, and this great answer. You know, I said, what are the obstacles to growth in the Middle East region? And he said, they're not obstacles, they're challenges. And I thought, well, that's a fantastic mindset to have. Fantastic panel. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.